breaking down Red Raider baseball like only we can. This is the Talkin' Baseball Podcast from Double T 97.3 and DoubleTSportsNetwork.com.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome into another episode of Talkin' Baseball alongside Jamie Lint. I'm Choice Woodman. This podcast, as usual, brought to you by our friends at Andrus Brothers. Jamie, another weekend, another tough opponent this weekend. You almost get it done against the number 16 team 2 times in a row after beating Arizona last weekend. But I was actually just surprised you got 3 full games in.
No question.
It was pretty wet up there in Morgantown, it seemed.
Yeah, it absolutely was. And, when we got there and saw the forecast and saw what was coming, and even before we left, we knew it was going to be a challenge. And when the game was postponed on Friday, you felt like it was unlikely that you were going to end up getting 3 in. It looked like there was about a 3-hour window on Saturday that you'd have a good chance to get maybe 1 in or most of 1 in, and then you could piece it together and maybe get another 1 in on Sunday. But to get all 3 of them in was really surprising and ultimately disappointing that the Red Raiders are unable to win the series. But really, this is a different situation that what we saw this weekend. You know, we've gone through phases of this season, where early on in the season, it was about your defense not performing and how much that cost your pitchers and how that changed things. And for a long stretch, it's been about starting pitching. And it feels like the defense has solidified. You're playing much better defense now. And now you're starting pitching much better this weekend. Got 14 innings out of your starting pitching. This weekend they gave up 6 earned runs. You'll take that. And you would have gotten more because Matt Hewitt was throwing well in game 1 before that delay caused him to be taken out of the game. And so, it just you could have gotten more but out of him. So the starting pitching was not the problem this weekend. And it was really the offense. And unlike our friends at Andrus Brothers who nail it every time, the Red Raiders were not nailing it every time this weekend. Your batting average was okay. I think you ended up hitting about 275 for the series, which is not horrible. It's not great, but it's not horrible.
You can win with that.
Yeah, but you're 3 for 17 with runners in scoring position. And then I think the biggest stat of the weekend was extra base hits. The Red Raiders had 2. They had a big 3-run double from Damian Bravo in game 1 of the doubleheader on Saturday that really won you the game. And then you had a solo home run from Tracer Lopez in game 2 of the doubleheader on Saturday. And that's it. I mean, you just didn't get much power, much pop. You didn't have a lot of innings where you had 2 or 3 guys on base. You didn't have a lot of that.
Sure.
And you just never got the offense going this weekend.
Yeah, it just seemed like one of those frustrating weekends where you've got some opportunity. Yeah, 17 opportunities with runners in scoring position isn't bad. You can, if you take advantage of those, then you can find a way to win. And obviously, you get 1 win this weekend. You play a 1-run game. In the second game, it's right there. You have opportunities. Just really one more hit with runners in scoring position probably does it for you in the second game on Saturday. And then Sunday is something we haven't seen all year. You haven't been shut out,
right?
So,
you were very close on Wednesday.
True, because it was 7-0 on Wednesday, which we haven't talked about yet. But the 5-0 score, they stretched out a little bit at the end. It's a really close game throughout, and you're right. It's the same storyline every week this year. It seems like of not necessarily the same thing going wrong, but one hitch in your giddy up of one part of the game that has not been good enough to win for you.
Yeah, whether it was defense, whether it was pitching, whether it was hitting, whether it was one reliever that had a bad day.
Yeah.
Whatever. You've found different ways to not get the job done, and that's unfortunate because it does feel like your pitching is giving you a chance right now, and your defense is not costing you a lot. Now, it did cost you in Saturday's game 2. You had an unearned run in the first inning on a 2-out error by your third baseman, and then the next guy hits an RBI double and gives them the early lead in that game, and it's an unearned run. And when you end up losing that game by a run, that shows up pretty big. But at the same time, you would have expected to score more than 2 runs in the game.
So what do you make of West Virginia, Jamie? This is a team that just continues to win baseball games over and over and over. They've won so many games. Tech's one of just a few teams that have beat West Virginia this season. And yet you still walk out feeling like you had an opportunity to win another series. And you can say that about Arizona State. You can say that about TCU. You can say it about a lot of different series this year.
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati, where you could have beat good baseball teams, but you come up short. So flipping it over to West Virginia, is this a top-tier baseball team to you, or how do you view them? Because they've still only got 6 losses the whole year.
You know what, Choice? I look at them as one of the better teams in the Big 12 Conference. I don't know that I look at them as the best team in the Big 12 Conference. I like Arizona's lineup better. I like TCU, what they have. I think Kansas may be the best team combination-wise, pitching and hitting in the Big 12 Conference, and I think Arizona State's offense is really good. So it's hard to not notice, Choice.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the Big 12 standings, okay, and this was coming into yesterday, their matchups in the Big 12 were with 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14.
Yeah.
They played 1 in the top 6 and lost that series at home to Arizona.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's hard to not notice how awesome their schedule has been.
It's glaring. It is.
They will play Kansas and Kansas State the next 2 weekends, one at home, one on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And you'll find out a little bit more about them. I think they're a good team. I don't think they're great. I don't know that there are any great teams in the Big 12 Conference this year. I will be really surprised to see West Virginia get out of a regional.
And that's what I was wondering. Are they a team that you look at as kind of a pretender for the postseason? Just really good record, but
the schedule, it's hard to not notice, right? It's one of the worst in the country. The non-conference schedule hasn't been tough. And it's none of their fault.
No, it's just
the way the schedule broke for them in the Big 12 and the teams that they're playing. They haven't had to play the tougher teams. They're going to play 2 of them that are a little bit tougher coming up. But, I just don't look at them and feel like now what they do running the bases and being aggressive there, it's impressive. I think they're, again, you saw a great reliever on Saturday come in and shut down the Red Raiders. I think you saw a great starter, a 6-year guy pitching on Sundays for him, and he was really tough yesterday against the Red Raiders. So give those guys credit. They definitely deserve it, but their lineup is not that dynamic as we've seen in years past. For the Mountaineers, I don't think this is one of the better teams they've had in the last 5 or 6 years.
So what's crazy about that, Jamie, is you can look at West Virginia's schedule and you can make an argument that Texas Tech, as bad as Texas Tech's record is maybe the 3rd or 4th best team that they've played this year, or at least in Big 12 play, at least for sure. And it's you look at it, it's just, and that's probably why you competed with them. And I envy that schedule this year because of how things have gone. Obviously,
and so when people, Big 12 fans, get up in arms and they're like, "Look at their record. Why are they not higher? Why
I was one of those a couple of weeks ago.
The love. Why are they not in the top 10?" And that schedule, it's hard to not notice.
Yeah, I was one of those a couple of weeks ago, but watching them the last couple of weeks and then specifically this weekend, I'm the same way as you. I feel like they're just they're a good baseball team, but not in that upper echelon. And I think you're right. I would be surprised if they get out of. They might get out of a regional, but I would definitely be surprised if they get any further than that. If they
get out of a super.
If they made it to Omaha, I'd be very surprised at that. Teams can get out of a regional, especially their record still may allow them to host, and they've got a couple of big series too that are coming up. They're couple Kansas State in Manhattan won't be easy, and then Kansas, as you mentioned, one of the better teams in the Big 12. So so they can prove it in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, but even those 2 teams, right? Kansas State. I mean, they're so up and down.
Absolutely, they are.
Kansas just got swept at home by Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Kansas has the best roster of any in the Big 12 conference. I don't know what's going on with this conference. It's
quite drunk right now.
it is Jekyll and Hyde
Yeah.
conference, which at times makes it fun.
It does. 'Cause you don't want to be able to predict everything, so that's
At the same time, it makes me again question how exactly good this league is this year.
And all fair questions. Okay, coming up next, we will look ahead to the weekend series with UCF, but also a midweek stop, or a couple of midweek stops with the state of New Mexico. We'll dive into that. First, a word from our friends at Andrews Brothers.
When you want the brand in West Texas roofing, there's only one company to call, Andrus Brothers Roofing. Like our Red Raiders, Andrus Brothers knows that to win, you have to be better than your competition and you have to dominate in all phases. With over 40 years experience, Andrus Brothers has mastered these concepts. So when the high winds and debris damage your roof, there's only one company to call, Andrus Brothers Roofing. Accept no substitutes. Stick with the starters on the ABR winning team. Andrus Brothers Roofing, we nail it every time.
Okay, Jamie. So last week, I kind of just glazed right over the UTRGV series because, it wasn't very fun. But last week, when we sat here, we talked about, hey, you only need, 12 out of 14 to get to 12 out of your last 14 to get to 500. That's off the table. So at this point, it's all about just the Tim Tadlock approach, one day at a time, one pitch at a time, because that's all.
Get yourself better and get yourself ready for the postseason, and try to be playing your best baseball when you head to Arlington.
That's pretty well what it is.
You've got 2 weeks to get that figured out.
Yeah. So what you've got is 5 opportunities this week. I think it is important. I think obviously there's a lot more importance on the Big 12 games you have left. You get 2 series left because you're trying to get as many wins as you can to get the best positioning for the Big 12 tournament. Play the better teams late in the tournament if you can do that. But you do have 2 midweek games. One of these is a makeup on Wednesday with New Mexico. You have a Tuesday game against New Mexico State. What do we expect to see in these 2 games here?
Yeah, New Mexico State has not had a great season. They're below 500 like the Red Raiders. And so this is a team that I feel like it should be a very winnable game for the Red Raiders. You go to the New Mexico game the next day, and New Mexico, we know, put it on the Red Raiders and run ruled them the first time that they faced off with really good offense. And just the pitching is not as great, but they can always hit. So I think these games scare you a little bit, and the potential that they should be higher scoring games, and your offense isn't scoring a lot of runs right now. So maybe some midweek contests against some not great pitching staffs is exactly what you need.
It could be.
Because you go back to last week with UTRGV, who had the top 40 RPI, and you could see that was a good baseball team. You want to give them all the credit for those 2 wins. But the thing that jumps out at you is that the Red Raiders in 18 games of offense only scored in 3 different innings in those 18 innings. And so you got to be better. You got to be able to compete and put pressure on a team more than what the Red Raiders did in those 2 midweek contests, and hopefully you'll be able to do that here over the next couple of games with New Mexico State and New Mexico.
So, have we gotten an announced starter for either of these games? I have not.
I will be really surprised if Connor Mohan doesn't start on Tuesday.
I figured he would be the guy. Do we get the same thing over again on Wednesday? Or?
I bet not. Okay. I bet we'll see something different. I don't think Coach Tadlock was real thrilled with the start from Zach Crotchfeld last week. Maybe just didn't feel like he was at his best in the starting role, so it probably puts him back in the bullpen and gives somebody else a shot at it, whether that be somebody like a Johnny Lowe or somebody like that who started before. Yeah.
So that's the midweek. Then you get UCF. These last 2 series, Jamie, you should, I think on paper, you should win these last 2 series. Even a road trip to BYU, and we'll get into that next week. But UCF at home is one of the bottom teams in the league, and Texas Tech has not been a consistent baseball team, but opportunity is right in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've fallen back to 9th in the standings with Oklahoma State jumping in front of you, but it is favorable the rest of the way. UCF has not played great baseball of late.
Yeah.
They just got swept by Oklahoma State, and you feel like the Red Raiders have a shot there playing at home. And so hopefully that is the case. And BYU right now, and that's the thing about these two teams, though, Choice. These two teams are fighting to get to the Big 12 tournament.
There's the extra.
They are 12 and 13 right now in the standings, and so it's these are two teams that have something to be playing for.
Sure.
Trying to get to Arlington, so you would think that they're not going to be just packing it in, but who knows? The way UCF played last weekend, it kind of looked like they were ready to be done, but we'll have to see what happens. But I think the Red Raiders on paper should win these two series.
On two.
I mean, you start with right there, just win the two series, take 4 out of 6, whatever, and head to the Big 12 tournament off of 2 series wins. You would definitely take that, but the potential is there for even a little bit more.
And just for saving face, if this matters to anybody out there, if you win your next 2 series, you'll finish the season at 500. If you 500 or better, if you're able to win. Right. 4 out of 6, that'll finish you off with an even record. If you win more than that, then you can finish above 500, which can at least give you something good to look at.
No, that's something to shoot for. Yeah,
a rough season. So, it's winnable, but we'll see if the bats can get going or if there's something else that rears its ugly head. Hopefully not.
Yeah, it was just a week where your offense just was not clicking, and really the bottom of the lineup this past weekend just didn't do much at all for the Red Raiders. Just a couple of hits with 7 through 9 in the lineup. And even, Damian Bravo obviously had the big swing in game 1 of the series against West Virginia, had 4 hits in that game, but then he was quiet the rest of the weekend. Logan Hughes had a solid weekend. I believe he had 4 hits on the weekend, but no really big Logan Hughes swings, right? That we've seen from him so much. Tracer Lopez was your top hitter this weekend. He was consistent as he has been, and it's great to see Tracer. Man, he is playing by far his best baseball as a Red Raider right now.
Yep.
At the plate, in the field, he has been really, really good. And so you want to see those guys keep going, but you got to get Villeneuve going again. He was pretty quiet this weekend. Did have a couple of hits in his last at-bat, so maybe he takes a little momentum away from that. Savateri, quiet this weekend. Guys that had been swinging it well. So you just got to get those guys going again. Need some big swings, like the one that Bravo gave you in game 1 of that series. You need some of those big run-producing swings, and the Red Raiders just didn't get enough of those this weekend. And the conditions maybe factored into that a little bit. I mean, it was miserable there, but at the same time, I'm sure Coach Tadlock would say, hey, you got to fight through that. You got to look past all of that and just get out there and compete. And so need to get the offense going, no doubt. And one of the guys I haven't that we didn't mention today this weekend is Coleman Ryan, who, boy, defensively, he made some spectacular plays this weekend. The freshman continues to get better and better at the plate, and his defense is legit. So really excited about his future. I'm also excited about what we're seeing from Jay Souza right now.
Yeah,
and I know he took the offer yesterday, but he's another freshman who finally is healthy and is swinging the bat well. I love his approach at the plate, and so I'm anxious to see what he's going to be moving forward for the Red Raiders, because he looks really, really good. Another freshman, Will Jordan, this week had 2 really good performances, one against UTRGV and one 2 1/3 of no-run ball at West Virginia, which I thought was big, and it's really good to see those guys as freshmen. Kind of at that point of the season where you're like, you're not a freshman anymore. We need you to compete and be good. And I think all 3 of those guys are getting the job done.
And in today's world of college athletics where everybody moves everywhere, pretty important to get those freshmen and those younger guys extra opportunities to try to, instill in them, hey, we want you. We want you to hang around. So let's get you those chances. And sad that you have to think that way, but it's a reality.
Choice is absolutely right, and I refuse to think that way. I just assume they come here to play for Tim Tadlock and the Red Raiders, and they're going to be here for a couple more years until they're all drafted in the top 5 picks of the 2027 draft.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I like your way of thinking better. Let's go with that. That's it for us. Appreciate you tuning in all season long. We'll have a few more of these. Hopefully, extend this out a little bit with some postseason opportunity. But keep tuning in, and 5 chances to check out Red Raider baseball, all on Double T 97.3 this week. New Mexico State, then New Mexico, and 3 against UCF. Tune it in on Double T 97.3. For Jamie Lent, I'm Choice Woodman. It's been Talkin' Baseball, powered by the Double T Sports Network. Golly.
Breaking down Red Raider baseball like only we can. This is the Talkin' Baseball podcast from Double T 97.3 and DoubleTSportsNetwork.com.